All right, so Dana just announced his pick for Conor's comeback fight. Straight up, he did. No questions asked. I'm going to show you guys the clip. And the way that he did it is very, very telling. This is the fight he wants. Like, this is the fight that he wants. And I'll tell you who that is and, why I think he wants it and why it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. When I really thought it through, I was like, man, anyway, there's a lot to it because we're going to talk about why Dana wants that fight, why it's very likely to happen, why it makes sense, and then why it may not actually happen. And we'll go through all that. But before we do, I haven't asked you guys in a couple of videos. If you like the content, subscribe. If you're one of these people that's like the 45% that watches all my videos and hasn't subscribed, I'm not asking for much, man. I'm not trying to get money from you, not trying to get nothing. It just makes me feel good to see my subscriber base go up. I would appreciate it immensely. I work really hard on the channel. Also, I'm going to have a barn burner video that goes on Jesse on Everything today. That I will tell you right now. It's going to be about something I uncovered that's going on in Washington that will blow your mind, okay? So look for my new video on Jesse on Everything. I don't want to say too much about it on this channel because keep that stuff separate. But Jesse on Everything is going to have a barn burner today. That I can promise you. I'm going to record it right after this. But anyway, so let's watch what Dana said together and then we can discuss. How about that, dude? How about that? Boom.
I know when they initially were going back and forth years ago, you said Masvidal and Conor didn't make sense because he's so much smaller. Conor's a pretty big boy these days. I mean, that could be one of the biggest, if not the biggest fights you could make.
No, I really like Chandler versus Conor after Chandler's last fight.
All right, so let's stop there. Okay, so Dana wants Conor versus Chandler. Now, if you are a student of Dana White, and what I mean is like you watch his stuff and you've watched it over the years and then you've watched how things played out. Okay, like if he says a thing like that, that's the fight he wants. Plain and simple, dude. That's his his job is to get two guys. He can't magically make guys fight. They have to agree to fight, right? But if he says a thing like that, that means that's the fight he wants. And it makes perfect sense. So what he said was, the guy threw out Masvidal at him and he's like, I like Chandler Conor. And then he said, so I don't know if the Masvidal one is the one to make. So there's kind of a lot to this actually, right? So the first thing I would bring up is like, you got to look at every single kind of fight, like a matchup as some kind of gamble to the UFC, right? Normally they have a guy that they want to win. It's very, very rare for there to be a fight where you have an outstanding outcome either way, right? So like as an example, if Conor fights Masvidal and Conor wins, that sets up a fight with Kamaru, which would be fantastic for that one fight. But if Dana doesn't think it's likely that Conor wins that fight, then that's actually not a good outcome, okay? Like you got to think through, like if you hear Dana trying to push Conor away from 170, aside from like one super fight there, whether it was going to be Masvidal for a super fight or Nate Diaz 3 or whatever. But if you start, because that's where my brain went when I saw that right out of the gate. Well, aside from what we're going to talk about with the Chandler and Conor fight. But it's like, if what Conor is ascending towards is an outcome that Dana thinks is not going to be good for the UFC, then he's going to try to shy him away from it. If he doesn't think that Conor can beat Kamaru, then he's not going to want him to do 170 because he wants Conor to win, right? Like he wants Conor to win. He wants Conor to be in big fights. And he definitely, more than anything, does not want Conor's brand damaged, okay? Like if Conor gets his fucking ass whipped, it's bad for his brand. And he also might not come back. He doesn't need to fight. He's got enough money. He spends a lot of money, but like, so that's part of it at 170, I would imagine. But on the flip side of that, right? So like, and also you just think about the Masvidal fight. So like if Masvidal wins, what's gained there, right? Like he beats Conor, that's very bad, right? But what's gained? Masvidal's already a superstar. Like there's nothing gained there. Like Masvidal's already a superstar. He's not in any better position to challenge for the title, He's not in any better position. Now that's a great fight. I want that fight more than anything, dude. I've made this perfectly clear. In terms of stylistic matchups, I want that fight so bad. I need it. But the business side is what I do in terms of, looking at the board and going, okay, well, I mean, I understand why that makes sense or why that doesn't make sense. Now, I do think the Masvidal fight makes sense because it would be so enormous. But if you're thinking long game and you're not just thinking about this one fight, then here's what you got with the Chandler one, okay? Whoever wins that fight will come out of it the biggest star in the UFC, coming off of a win and going into a title shot at 155. Plain and simple, okay? Now, is it outlandish to say that Chandler would be a bigger star than Conor? Maybe, probably, right? Well, yes, it would, actually. But, if, like, you guys have seen what happens if you beat Conor, right? Where was Khabib before the Conor fight? A decently well, he was like, I mean, honestly, like Khabib at that point was comparable to, like, I don't even know. I can't really, like, he was not top of the food chain guy in terms of star power and draw. He beats Conor in that huge event and boom, he's where he is now. Okay. Nate Diaz made 40 and 40 for his fight before the Conor McGregor fight. Okay. Dustin is a way bigger star now. If Michael Chandler, where he's at right now, which is right on the cusp of rocket ship level, if he goes in there and he starches Conor, he will be such an enormous star. Like, there is a scenario where, as it relates to the UFC, he becomes as big of a draw as Conor. And that might sound crazy to you. I'm telling you, it's not, dude. If he knocked Conor out and he gets on the microphone and has some absolutely lights out performance, which he would, because he always kills it on the mic. If he knocked out Conor after a really great buildup, a really solid buildup, and I'm telling you, like, that outcome is it's the one outcome where Conor gets starched that's not necessarily bad for the UFC. Might even be good if you think that Conor only has a handful of fights left, because he's kind of like, well, you know, it's hard. How do you stay motivated if you're Conor? But anyway, so that's why. And then you set up a Chandler versus Oliveira rematch, or Makhachev, depending. And Chandler is an absolute megastar, you know? And if Conor wins, then Conor is set up for a title shot at 55. And there's no explanation needed there, right? So it's just business, and it's good business. Now, before I get to the next part, which is very important, I want to tell you guys about IP Vanish, because it's Friday. And on Fridays, we talk about IP Vanish. And the reason for that is that Fridays is especially known for creeps trying to find out what you've been doing on the internet, trying to sell your data to people, trying to look at all your little stuff. You need a VPN. You need IP Vanish. It's the one that I use, and it is awesome. I know I say this, you can use it on every single device. It's really inexpensive, shockingly inexpensive. And when you actually think about what you get for it, and then you compare it to the price, it's an absolute no-brainer, okay? There's no promotion, like there's no like special stuff, no raffles, no nothing. It's just common sense. I'm telling you right now, real talk, whether you use the IP Vanish or another, if you're not using something to hide your IP, you're out of your mind. Like, really, I'm being serious about this. Like, this is not seriously. Now, if that makes sense to you and you understand why, and then you wanted to use IP Vanish because it's the best one and it's the one that I use, then go to ipvanish.com/Jesse, Jesse, and use promo code JESSE, because you get 70% off when you pay for a year. It is not expensive, okay? Not expensive. And it's awesome. You will never, ever, ever go back to not using it. Ain't nobody know where I'm at, son. I could show you guys some tricks to get people's IP, and then you'd be like, damn, it's that easy? And you'd be like, yeah, it's that easy. And then you would want it. You don't want everybody knowing where you're at. At least I don't. Anyway, so yeah. Okay, so now on the flip side of this, right? What's the likelihood that this fight actually happens? Okay? So here's the deal. Like I said, Dana can state what he wants, but that doesn't have anything to do with, well, I mean, it has a lot to do with actually who ends up fighting. But he can't make it happen. Like, he can't make it happen. Conor has to agree to it. Okay, obviously Chandler would agree to it, but Conor has to agree to it. If Conor's stubborn, and he's like, no, I want to do 70, whatever. I mean, I don't know how Conor would play that after 2020 when he wanted to fight so bad. And like, he knows they could just not fight him. Although that's, it's a pandemic. But if Conor is absolutely dead set on 70, then, it is what it is. Although Chandler said he would do him at 70. But read my mind on that, right? If Conor wants to do 70, what does he gain by beating Chandler at 70 towards what his ultimate goal is, which is a title shot at 70? Nothing. Everybody knows, like, Chandler's a 55er, right? It's like if it was like a Nate Diaz style, like, trilogy, whatever, and it's just a mega fight, then of course you do it at whatever weight class, it doesn't matter. But if Conor's eye is on the prize at 70, then Chandler at 70 does not really make sense. I would love to see Conor fight Chandler. I would love that. I think that fight is incredible. And to break that fight down, it's actually really interesting because, you know, Tony showed, I mean, in all honesty, like Chandler has looked very, very good in all of his fights. In the Tony fight, he had some trouble in the first round because he was on the, you know, he was on the wrong end of some really long Gumby straight shots. Now, if you get old Conor, right? If you go back to like Eddie Alvarez Conor, right? Like that kind of era of Conor striking, that's going to be problematic for Chandler because that's the same type of deal. And Conor, when he was light on his feet, was exceptional at controlling distance. Exceptional. Now, Chandler is very good at closing distance very, very quickly. But so was Jose Aldo. So was Eddie Alvarez. So was everybody else that Conor did that. Just slit his distance. That, you know, their punch would literally get to within millimeters and he would just be like, and whap over the top. His like step back left over the top counter is unmatched. Now, I haven't seen him doing that lately because he's got more of a kind of like a traditional boxing, boxing stance or boxing kind of style. But also when it comes to the boxing style, and I will say this on the channel, hopefully that Chandler sees it. Chandler has a bad habit. You know, got a bad habit. Even does it when he hits pads sometimes. And Conor has developed it. Like Conor was never, like back in the day, Conor was not going to knock you out with a hook, dude. Like he wasn't going to knock you out with a hook. Chandler will knock you the fuck out with a hook. He'll knock you into another fucking dimension with a hook. But old Conor was going to knock you out with a big, long shot, you know, ball on the end of the chain. Whap! That was his knockout shot. But like, you know, he wasn't like a guy where if he got in close, you were super concerned about getting hit with heavy body shots or like, you know, hooks, which now when you watch him hit pads and you kind of see how he fought Dustin, he's a much bigger threat inside than he used to be. But it seems like he got away from the other thing where it's kind of like back and forth controlling distance and, you know, kind of fighting the way that he used to fight, you know, the karate style, which, you know, back and forth, control distance, you know, slip punches, whap. And he was so good at that. It'd be interesting to see if he can kind of work both styles in. But also Chandler has an enormous, enormous weapon in his ability to close distance quickly and take Conor down. I mean, he was able to do that to Tony Ferguson. And like, if he can get an early takedown on Conor, like there's no mystery here that the way that you fight Conor, if your goal is to win, is to take him out of the first round, right? Like just make sure that in the first round, he doesn't get you. And so if you're able to zap some of his energy, just like Dustin Poirier did in the first fight, well, you know, not the first fight, but you know, in January 2021, if you can get through that first round with Conor, your odds of winning go up absolutely exponentially. Like if you get through it without him hurting you, you know, where if you zap some of his energy, I mean, that is just plain and simple. If you can successfully get a takedown on Conor in the first round, there's just no question that is the correct thing to do. And Chandler certainly has that ability, you know. It'll be a really interesting fight, dude. Because Chandler has nuclear power. He's so fast, dude. He's super, super fast. He's faster than Conor. More powerful than Conor, actually. But Conor's timing and precision is out of this world. So, anyway, we'll see. I would love to see that fight. But just like I said, I would love to see Conor versus Masvidal. So, anyway, that's what I got. Love you guys. Peace.